You've probably already heard of Bill C-18 in Canada, which is going to gravely affect the Canadian internet. It's a Liberal bill that is requiring Google and Meta to pay for news content online. Google represents not just Google, but also YouTube, and Meta represents Instagram and Facebook. This represents a lot of news sharing for Canadians online. And, I saw this bill being passed and I thought, I'm really hoping this doesn't affect me. And I'm thinking if it does affect me, it might take some time to actually come into effect. But last night, I got a message from a fellow content creator that terrified me. He sent me this screenshot that he received on his Instagram account. Basically, he can't even see his own Instagram account. It says, people in Canada can't see your content. He sent this to me last night, and I'm chatting with him now. This is Michael from the New Guards. How are you doing today, man? And give us an update on the situation with your accounts.
I am good, man. I've relaxed from last night. Last night I was like, it woke me up. Like I was livid when I saw this. I was just confused, and it's scary to see actually come into play. Like we've heard, like you said, we've heard about it for a long time, but this is scary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who don't know, Michael runs the New Guards, which is you're prominently on Facebook and Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, but you post content that's, talking about news and information, the World Economic Forum, that sort of thing. And you're doing very well, I want to emphasize. 250 posts only, and you have 27,000 followers. Like that's you're making quality content, obviously, that people are enjoying. If you're Rebel News, if you're True North, you're obviously going to be worried about this legislation coming down the pipe. But the fact that they're picking on somebody like you, you're kind of doing this as a hobby, I think you said, that's quite alarming. Have you been able to talk to anyone about this? Have you been able to send in an inquiry to Facebook or Instagram? Like, who do you even have to speak to about this to help you?
It's so fresh, so I haven't applied for an appeal or anything. But my experience with Facebook and Instagram is anytime you write them to help you with anything, you're getting a bot with an automatic response. Right. The funny thing to point out is that I'm not news. Like if you go through my videos, I rarely go over current events. It's really just discussing a number of topics. I can see why you might say it's news, but like I don't even regularly post. Like I'll post maybe once a day. Sometimes I'll skip a couple days. So it's weird to me to see that they've first of all classify me as a news publication. But yeah, the really interesting, like you said, it's a hobby for me. I don't make money on this. I would like to perhaps one day build some kind of media company, but I'm not there. But it's really worrisome for people like True North and Rebel News. And I actually think that this has a lot to do with Rebel News. You've seen Trudeau's reactions to Rebel News and to Ezra Levant and saying that they're not a media organization, and Rebel News criticizes him a lot, and he doesn't seem to be able to take it. He seems to be kind of folding under that criticism. So,
yeah, and so this screenshot that I showed earlier, this was on your phone, on your Instagram. Did you see anything like this on your Facebook page?
No, so I haven't seen it on Facebook, and on my computer, I can still see my Instagram page because I have a VPN, which is putting me in the States, right? So the only reason I can see it on my computer is because of VPN. But so from what I understand, they're doing a test run. So I've spoken to a number of friends and other people that have commented on this video saying that I can still see your content. And that is because they're doing a test run and it's not going out to all Canadians yet, but the goal is to do it universally to all Canadians. There's an article that said it was 5% of Canadian users of these platforms that are affected by this. So I think they're doing kind of a random test run and seeing what the reaction is going to be. And this is the reaction, right? Like the reaction is like, holy smokes, what have we become?
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of like the Bill C-11 stuff, where like, you know, they're pushing through this Bill C-11 thing, and it's like, hey, this is totally not going to affect, you know, user generated content. This is not going to affect the little guy. And like, you know, C-18 is happening a few weeks later, it's affecting you, which is in many respects the little guy in the grand scheme of things. And I'm wondering, because they're kind of doing all these experiments, you know, it reminds me of the shadow banning that Elon Musk it's exposed at Twitter. You know, what kind of shadow banning exists on YouTube or Google or Facebook or Instagram? Like, it's one of those things that we as the users don't really know. We're just kind of subject to like, wow, my reach has totally declined for no reason. Maybe it's because I was, you know, questioning the narrative when it comes to shots or, you know, climate change, whatever it might be. But I am looking at your Facebook page, and I'm thinking that one of the issues might be simply this: you listed your page as a media news company. So I'm wondering if it might just be as simple as, is your Facebook, because you can do this on Meta or on Instagram, Facebook, are your pages linked like in the background or whatever?
I believe they are. So that might be the reason. Yeah,
it might be something like that, where it's just like we're gonna just start messing with every page on Meta that's listed as media or news. In which case, I strongly recommend that you just like start doing comedy. You know what I mean? Or like, change the label to something else. And I think the point is, even without all this crazy legislation coming from the Canadian government, even as a creator on these platforms, we're very much subject to whatever these platforms want to do. You know, it's a very insecure place to be. You don't know when they're just, especially when you're talking about the things that we talked about, you don't know when they're just going to totally yank away, you know, your platform, your following, your reach, all of these things. And especially if you like rely on it for income, it's like a super scary place to be. But
I can only imagine what it's like for Rebel News and for True North. True North seems to skate the line pretty well and just comment on Canadian politics. Rebel News, you know, they go a little deeper with Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum and stuff, and you can see that they kind of have a target on their back. So their whole business model is working on these platforms, right? Working on YouTube and viewership on Facebook and YouTube, right? If they can't get those views, they have to raise funds other ways, which they do some fundraising, not even just for themselves. They do it for good causes that are, you know, they're fighting to get some person that is wrongly accused, you know, to contribute to that case or whatnot for the lawyers. The monetary aspect of it is one thing, but now the real scary part is, like, think about where we get our news. Elon Musk actually said this on Twitter. I get most of my news from Twitter. That's how we function. Who watches the news on television? Anybody who in our kind of space gets their news from the television? And at what age do people, you know, like what age limit are people getting news from television? My mom watches the TV and she puts it on and just listens to it in the background. I come home and she's like, "Oh my God, you see what's happening?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably BS. It's probably propaganda." But so is that what they expect us to do? To just
go back to the TV, go back to cable?
Right.
Yeah, right. People are, you know what's going to happen. More people are going to go to alternative platforms like Telegram. And, you know, it's like, it totally speaks to the absurdity of this legislation to begin with. They like to say it's about this or about the people. You're just trying to take money from big tech, and that's it. And, you know, that's the sort of surface level reason, but what is the consequence? The consequence is it's going to be very hard for real information to get out there, because let's face it, a lot of the CBC legacy media is like you said, propaganda. It's bloated. It's not the real nuggets of information that's relevant to people. And in the pursuit of getting money from big tech, they are, you know, stifling the free flow of information in Canada. But,
right. So it's to promote Canadian content. I don't know if that's C-11 or C-18, but you see them talking in the House. There's the Liberal guy who was talking to Pierre Poilievre, and he's like, the Conservatives are worried about cat videos on the internet, and he's like, really, guys, like, is this what we're doing? Is this what we're doing in the House? Yeah. One small comment about the House Commons in Canada is, it's really become just a place for them to get gotcha moments, right? Like, the Speaker of the House is there not as just a mantelpiece to just say, your turn to speak, your turn to speak. He's there to enforce the rules of the chamber, meaning that the people have to, the politicians have to answer questions legitimately, not just spew out talking points and repeat the same thing over and over again, which is the most frustrating thing to see. Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, all these clowns do. They don't address any questions, right? I mean, you've seen this. I don't have to tell you. So for the CBC, there's two points to think about. Yes, they're saying that it's for the monetary aspect. And if you look at the CBC, they're not doing so well. They lost 25% of their viewership. And what's their funding from the Canadian government? Do you know what their funding is now?
CBC, I think it's like 1.6 billion a year.
1.6 billion in 2023. I think in 2022 it was 1.2 billion, and now it's gone up to 1.6 billion dollars. So Canadian taxpayers are paying for the CBC, and then the government is then stopping the broadcasting of CBC on basically the only place you can get it. Google is not a platform. It's a search engine. It is the primary search engine that everybody uses.
Yep.
Google's not posting anything. People aren't posting anything on Google. For Google, I mean, I get Facebook maybe a little bit because it is a platform you can find stuff on. Google is a search engine. What is going on? Like, it's a Chinese firewall. This is what's happening. You can no longer, in China, you were no longer able to find Tiananmen Square, right? They erased it from the internet. They don't have the same internet as us. They have a firewall. They don't have Facebook, Instagram. They have their own versions of it, their copycat versions. This is what it feels like, right?
Yeah, and that's the way that people should think about it. They should think about it in those very intense terms of comparing it to communist China, where you can't even use Google in China without a VPN. You know, this really, the way with C-11 and also with C-18, the way in which the federal government is fucking with the internet in Canada is totally unacceptable.
It's dystopian.
And yeah, and you know, I'll be like a broken record here, because if you watch my content, you know that I'm all about criticizing the Conservatives now for hardly really resisting this stuff. They sort of resist it, but it's like you should be calling Trudeau a tyrant every single day. I love
the name of your show, actually, but yes.
Thank you.
That's exactly what they are.
I appreciate that.
They talk a big game. They talk a big game. They do nothing.
They do nothing. That's right. But in the meantime, we need to cross-promote people like ourselves and make sure that we survive on here. Let people know where they can find you to support you, and you know, make sure that they can follow you and still consume your content.
The uncensored content, if you want it, Twitter and Rumble. You can find us, The New Guards Media, or just The New Guards. It might be The New Guards _ one of those. But so, yeah, we're going to start a Telegram channel and start putting out information there.
Amazing. Well, thanks for joining me, Michael. And obviously we'll see what happens next with this nonsense legislation, and we got to stay in touch and, you know, prop each other up, because we're going to be the only ones to help each other in this.
Thanks for having me, man. We'll, I don't know.
Get a VPN, guys. Get a VPN.
Sir, yes.
All right. Talk to you soon.